We've spent the last few weeks doing recaps of the stories of all Resident Evil games, having done one just recently for the first Resident Evil Revelations. There's one more game left though, Resident Evil Revelations 2, which serves as both a sequel to Revelations and a stopgap between the events of Resident Evil 5 and 6, bridging the two of them together. Here we'll be talking about its full story from start to finish. Before we go ahead, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos every single day and your support really helps us out. With that out of the way, let's start. Resident Evil Revelations 2 features two separate storylines. One focuses on Claire Redfield, and the other, set 6 months after Claire's story, features Barry Burton. As the game begins, we find that Claire is a senior member of the anti-bioterrorism organization known as the TerraSave, and that her new partner is none other than Moira Burton, the older daughter of Barry. Moira, as we learn later on in the game, has a crippling fear of guns due to an accident in her childhood when she and her sister Polly managed to get their hands on one of her father's guns, resulting in Moira actually shooting her sister. Even though Barry now realizes that the fault was his own, for the longest time he blamed Moira for the incident, putting immense strain on the relationship between the two. Revelations 2's opening scenes show Claire and Moira at a gathering for the TerraSave members, but the event is cut short in predictably disastrous fashion when a group of masked soldiers attacks them, knocking them out and taking them captive. When Claire and Moira wake up, they find themselves inside of a ramshackle prison that is overrun by creatures known as the Afflicted, who used to be humans but have mutated heavily due to torturous experiments, which we'll get to in a bit. Both of them have bracelets attached to both of their hands, and they're contacted through the bracelet by a woman's voice, who calls herself the Overseer and tells them that these bracelets track and record their fear. Claire and Moira manage to make their way out of the prison, and when they do, they discover that the prison is located on an isolated island. Soon they arrive at a nearby settlement called Wasek, where they find more abducted TerraSave members, and it's revealed why exactly they were all brought here. The Overseer contacts them again, telling them that they're all her new test subjects for a new bioweapon known as the T-Phobos virus, which, as its name suggests, responds to the fear of whoever has been injected with it. And how exactly does it respond to their fear? Why, turning them into mutated monstrosities, of course. Almost immediately afterward, the group is attacked by a swarm of the Afflicted, and the other TerraSave members that Claire and Moira found are eventually killed, either in the current attack or not long afterward. All but one, Neil Fisher, who is in fact the leader of TerraSave. While Fisher stays behind to fight the monsters, Claire and Moira use the time he's bought for them to make their escape. They cross paths with a mysterious young girl named Natalia Corda, who, as the game eventually reveals, is an orphan and lost both her parents in the Terra Griga incident that led to the events of the first Revelations game. These traumas in her past have made her almost immune to fear, which makes her oddly suited to being on an island that is brimming with BOWs and a virus that responds first and foremost to fear. Natalia is soon abducted, however, captured by a hooded figure who takes her to the Overseer's tower on the island, with the Overseer intending to transfer her consciousness into the little girl's body. Claire and Moira give chase, of course, and after getting past a bunch of dangerous traps and making their way through a deadly network of sewers, they arrive at their destination where they make some startling revelations. The Overseer, as it turns out, is a woman named Alex Wesker, the so-called sister of Albert Wesker himself, and was one of the children that were part of Umbrella's Project Wesker eugenics program. Meanwhile, Neil Fisher, the leader of TerraSave, is a mole of the organization known as the FBC, which was disbanded when its leader, Morgan Lansdale, was arrested when knowledge of his involvement in the Terra Griga incident became public. Fisher has been working with Wesker with a deal in place that will give him a sample of the Ouroboros virus, which in turn he intends to use to restore the FBC. But Alex Wesker does justice to her name. She betrays Fisher, and instead of giving him the Ouroboros sample in exchange for bringing her Natalia, she injects him with it and flees the scene. Fisher turns into a hulking, mutated monstrosity, and Claire and Moira are forced to engage him in a fight, which ends with Moira killing him after finally overcoming her lifelong fear of guns. Once the fight is over, Claire and Moira go after Alex, who tells them that their ultimate goal is to overcome fear. Much to the surprise of the two of them, however, Alex proceeds to shoot herself in the head, seemingly killing herself. The facility that they're in responds to Alex's death by triggering a self-destruct sequence, forcing Claire and Moira to escape. Moira is caught under falling debris during their escape, however, and forces Claire to leave, who jumps into the ocean, leaving Moira behind. Claire wakes up in the hospital where she finds Barry Burton. When questioned about his daughter, Claire informs him that Moira dies, which Barry refuses to believe. No, Moira isn't dead, We'll get to that in a bit. Now we get to the Barry part of the story. Set 6 months after Claire's story, we see Barry heading to the island in search of Moira. Almost as soon as he arrives, however, he finds Natalia, and seeing the little girl all alone, he decides to take her under his wing. Soon afterward, the two of them also discover that Alex Wesker isn't dead after all, surprise, and has instead mutated due to the T-Phobos virus into a hulking monstrosity. Their trek across the island sees them going through many trials and tribulations and facing many dangers, and ends with a confrontation with Alex. In true Wesker fashion, and undergoes a second transformation, turning into something even more hideous and horrifying. At this point, you can get one of two endings in the game. But for obvious reasons, we're only going to talk about the canon one. In the fight that ensues, Barry is incapacitated by Alex, who then grabs Natalia and is moments away from killing her. In the nick of time, Moira, who has been surviving on the island for the past 6 months, arrives, helping Barry and Natalia fight Alex off. The three of them escape from the facility they're fighting in, while Alex, after transforming once again, chases them through the island. Claire arrives on the scene right in time in a helicopter, using a sniper rifle from a distance to fight Alex off while Barry, Moira, and Natalia climb on board. Finally, just as Chris Redfield once used a rocket launcher to conclusively kill a heavily mutated Albert Wesker, so too does Claire fire off an RPG as their chopper flies away to kill the heavily mutated Alex. In the game's epilogue, just as Chris Redfield is preparing to deploy to China to combat the C-virus threat portrayed in Resident Evil 6, Claire visits the Burton residence. Barry has adopted Natalia and intends to raise her as his daughter, though things might not proceed as planned. In the final moments of Resident Evil Revelations 2, it is heavily implied that Alex Wesker succeeded in her plan of transferring her consciousness into Natalia, who it seems is beginning to be overtaken by the resurgent Alex.
But now, the bird is gone. The bird has changed.
So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and we would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.